The critical concept, SOS Emergency. Now, this is the topic of today, and the reason we believe that you would benefit from spending the next 20-25 minutes with us is that critical can save you potentially millions, even around billions in estimated savings when in need of critical equipment. Of course, also saving you a lot of valuable time and solving those big headaches. So critical is really for the big events where all other hope seems not lost, but at least seems like big problems are on the horizon. So stay with us for the next 20 to 25 minutes if you're fairly new to the concept, or if you just like a refresh on how it works. So imagine that you receive a phone call that a pump is broken in one of your installations. You immediately contact the manufacturer and they say that they can deliver this item, but it will take them a couple of weeks. So what are your options? Then you risk weeks of production loss and perhaps big costs incur. And one of the possibilities when faced with such a dilemma is critical. So critical has a history of same day deliveries, which of course can save you those massive costs which a production stop induce, but also save you, of course, the time and the costs, but also those headaches of looking for options. And if we wanted to sum up critical in just 2 sentences and an arrow, I think this would be the easiest. So the concept is very simple. If you send a request, the other operators will respond. So collaboration is really the key. And it's the same as calling the emergency services, only that the ones responding here are your colleagues. So if you find yourself in critical need of equipment, you can dial 911, as we say. You can go and check critical to send a request, and your other operator colleagues will respond. So collaboration is, of course, the key to developing really a lot of things on the continental shelf in the industry as a whole, which Offshore Norge is working with all of the applications that we offer. So I wanted to give you some real life examples of how critical works. Now we have one example of Aker BP saving around an estimated value of 1 billion Norwegian kroner thanks to a successful trade with Equinor. Now this happened after Aker BP experienced a long lead time from a supplier on 116 liners for their topside installation Alvheim. And the estimated downtime here was 16 weeks. But this was mitigated through virtual inventory and the request to Equinor. We have another example. This is also from Alvheim, actually, where they needed spare parts for a pump to avoid a potential production shutdown. Not that dissimilar from the first scenario we talked about. So these components were identified within 12 minutes after the submission of the request. And Alvheim received the required parts in less than a day after posting on the VI platform. So the delivery time from the supplier was 9 weeks. And this collaboration avoided potential downtime not only for Alvheim, but also for Bøyla, Volum, and Vilja. So we have some great success stories, and eliminating 16 weeks of downtime, saving estimated 1 billion, and of course also decreasing 38 weeks of delivery time. So these are just some of the big numbers that we are seeing when working with critical. So then the question is, how can you achieve the same? How can you do the same as these companies have done in these success stories if you find yourself in need of critical equipment? So in the next part, I will talk a bit about how you submit a critical request, how it works, and also talking about what's in it for me or what's in it for you. So why should you even look into what critical or virtual inventory is? We'll also have a Q&A session at the end of this webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat or the questions tab in the bottom right corner of your screen. And this webinar is being recorded. The recording is available immediately after this session. Hang back a minute or two if you'd like to view it. And also we'll send you the link to YouTube where we'll upload this webinar in a day or early next week. So how do you submit a critical request or a CMR? There are three types of CMRs. And I wanted to say before we start that anyone can send a critical request. So either if you have a user in virtual inventory or you don't have a user yet. And this is actually quite new in virtual inventory. And we implemented this to make sure that the replies are as swift as possible and that it's the same as dialing an emergency number. So anyone, even with a guest role in virtual inventory, can send out a critical request and it will get sent straight out to the other operators. And this is crucial to make sure that you receive a reply as quickly as possible. So logging into virtual inventory, we're going to show you two types of ways to create a critical request. The first thing you see is the big red button in the top right corner. So now with this new functionality that's available this week, anyone will see this big red critical button. So if you find yourself in need of equipment critically, then you can press this button, which will take you to this page. And it will ask you to fill in some information which is related to your request. And then you would have to fill out which type of equipment that you are searching for. And here we ask everyone to be as descriptive as possible to make it easier for the ones on the receiving end. And then the final step, you indicate the criticality, which is often immediate production loss, and also the category of this request. And then the recipients. So who should receive this? You can also add an attachment and add some more additional comments. And that's really all there is to it. The next step is to preview and send it out. And then it gets immediately dispatched to the operators on the Norwegian continental shelf. So we made it as easy as possible to hit that emergency button. So the other way that you can send a critical material request is if you perform a search in virtual inventory. So here we've searched for a valve ball in virtual inventory, logging in, searching for it. Then we find one in Flora, for instance. So if we have a critical need for this item, you will just push the big red button on the inventory, which will take you to the same form as we just saw. But the new part about sending a regular CMR through the search function is that all of the information is already available from the search. So you won't have to add any information if you're satisfied with this. Of course, you can add anything if you'd like. And then the next steps are the same as before, so I won't go into detail on those. So the last way of creating a request, this happens outside of VI. So literally anyone from any operating company working together with Offshore Norge can create a critical request. And we've made this form to make sure that it should be a way for the whole industry to reach out and get help, because this is if they have a critical need. So anyone, any colleague of yours could navigate to critical.virtualinventory.no, fill out this form, preview and submit. And when this external form is submitted, it gets sent to an approver from your company or from Offshore Norge, which then will dispatch it swiftly in order to get replies from the whole industry. So it's really as easy as that, and anyone can send this request. And I just also wanted to show you a bit more details on the flow. So starting off, anyone can register the request. The buyer can always cancel, add any comments, and then the seller on the receiving end can process this request and see if they have it in stock. And if they do, they can also, of course, decline. But if they do have it in stock, they will let the buyer know, put this into progress, and complete the sales. So we also have our own chat function within virtual inventory, so you have the whole story of the critical request flow. Then, when agreeing on, for instance, the delivery and all of the ins and outs of how you will receive this part, it gets sent back to the buyer, and the buyer can then add some comments, add the potential savings, and mark it as complete in virtual inventory. So you can really see this as a sort of fin.no, for those of you who are familiar with that, where you find the equipment in the search function, and then it gets dispatched out to the seller. So this is one way of looking at it, of conceptualizing it. And then we want to move on to what's in it for you. So now you've seen some success stories, and you've also seen how it works. And as I mentioned before, of course, it can save you time. So lead time is increasing in the business with raw material shortages, for instance. So saving time by buying something that is already in stock from another operator is, of course, a big upside to critical. And of course, it can save you a lot of money if you get this in time, which then will mitigate those unproductive production stops. Solving headaches, this is also a big one. When you receive a big problem that seems very hard to figure out, how can you even find this material, you can always reach out to your fellow operators, and they will help you as the community of virtual inventory and critical. So on the last slide, I just wanted to sum up the main idea behind critical. Send a request, and the other operators will respond. As easy as that. So moving on to the Q&A session, and we have received one question. And if you would like to ask any more, then you can send a chat. So on a direct question, what's the difference between a CMR, that is a critical request, or a general regular request? So to be clear, the only real difference between that is the criticality. So in virtual inventory, you can always send a general request if you find equipment that you would like to use at a later stage, for instance, or if you see that you may need this in a week or two's time, then you can always send a general or regular request. But if you need something critically to avoid potential downtime, then you would use the CMR. Then you would use the big red button. Okay, great. So without any further questions, I would just like to thank you all for coming today, and thank you for tuning in. This recording will be available on YouTube. So thanks everyone, and have a nice day.